It's a final word T20 World Cup Daily with Adam Collins and Jeff Lemon for CBUS Super, making hard work pay off. We must be back at the Melbourne Cricket Ground in our home city of Melbourne. We're together. We're both wearing flannels. We didn't organise this.
Checks and balances. The balances because we're different colours, and checks because they're checks.
We got one game in. There were two to be played, one between Ireland and England, and that was meant to be the curtain raiser before the main game of New Zealand and Afghanistan. Spoiler, didn't happen. Raining now. But one game did, and what a result. Jeff, 30 seconds, tell us.
Ireland knocked off England for the second time in World Cups. They were flying at the halfway mark, 92 for 1, even though Paul Sterling got out early for 14, slashed a 6 off Mark Wood and then got caught at deep third. Of course he did because he's Paul Sterling. And then the English came back. There was a run out off the bowler and then a big collapse. They bowled him out for 157. Looked like it should be a relative dawdle, but the Irish had other ideas. 3 for 28, 29 in the sixth over after Josh Little picked up a couple and Fionn Hand curled one through Ben Stokes. And the English couldn't quite get up with the rate. Milan gave it a go. Moeen Ali came in and gave it a go, and then the rain came down in the 15th over and they were 5 runs behind on Duckworth Lewis. Left their run too late. They've lost to Ireland. Yeah, they did lose second time in a row as well. I was at Southampton in 2020 in that third one-day international in the bubble those days when they went down after Ireland had about 340 to haul down. It was Andy Balbirnie. Which makes it sound like Ireland win against England all the time, but they don't. This is their first T20 win, and they've only won twice in 50 over games. That game and the one in the World Cup in 2011. That's it. And
it's their first World Cup game since 2011, so 11 years, different formats of the game. They've come up against each other in World Cup cricket.
In World Cups.
So 5 runs was the margin at the end, and David Milan getting out probably tilts that as far as Duckworth Lewis term is concerned. And it just looked like Moeen Ali there with Liam Livingstone had the... Well, they were ready, weren't they? I think Moeen hit 14 runs in 3 balls when the rain finally came down. Maybe they should have been more savvy to that in terms of the way they arranged their batting order. But really, this game was lost in the power plays. England concede 59 runs when they're bowling at the start. They really wanted wickets. You could sense this. Daniel Norcross made this point on Twitter. They were striving for wickets, but at what cost? Because, of course, inside the power play, if you're pushing hard for wickets and it doesn't go your way, in Ireland's case, 59 on the board. Other side of the ledger, as you say, they were 3 for 28, 3 for 37 by the end of the 6th over, and they're up against it, knowing rain was coming. So this game was, and yes, England did fight back well with the ball. They took 7 wickets in the last 8 overs, I think it was. They bowled them out in 19.2 overs. Ireland didn't bat out their complement.
But it was a fortuitous opening of the door, right? Because so 92 for 1 at the halfway, 97 for 1 in the next over, and then there's a deflection off Adil Rashid.
That's right,
and it runs out. Oh, I'm forgetting. Was it Tector? Or it was Tucker and Tector are the two that I get mixed up all the time. Tucker gets run out at the non-strikers, and he was going really well. So
they put on 82 from 57 balls. So he was the more aggressive of the two.
Yes, he was hitting sixes. He was. And Balbirnie's happy to just sort of be the fast-scoring anchor. He's played really well in this World Cup so far, Balbirnie, after some people, Ben Jones, questioned his ability as a T20 player. Maybe he wasn't the best T20 bat. Well, it turns out he is.
Yeah, he made 62 from 47 balls, the captain. I mentioned before that he was instrumental in them beating England last time, so I'm glad that he was again. And just on a personal note, Balbo's a great bloke. We like it when good people do well. We were saying this about Marcus Stoinis earlier today, so really thrilled that they've had that success under him today, because he was under the pump. He had a low run of scores in the build-up to the tournament. I think he missed out in the first 2 games of the qualifier, and here they are. And just on Ireland, by the way, they didn't make the Super 12s last year. They were one of the sides that David Visa monstered.
He visaed them.
He visaed, that's better. He visaed them in the qualification stages. Didn't make the main draw proper, which was seen as a letdown for Cricket Ireland.
Sure.
And they've got through the Super 12s, and they get the big scalp of England. I'm not saying they're going to go on and make the semi-finals, but when reflecting on where Ireland cricket's been in the last few years and generation next, and that transition of the golden generation leaving, this new group under Balbirnie, it is players like Lorcan Tucker, and I know Tector missed out today, but it is Tector and Josh Little, who picks up Josh Butler. Some people call him Josh Butler.
Curtis Campher bashed a few as well at an important time.
That's right, Curtis Campher.
It was interesting, because this seemed like one of those games that Ireland were going to cock up after looking great, because when they're 92 for 1 at the halfway, you think, well, statistically, 180, maybe 200, like maybe they go big at the back end. Like they could be setting up a huge score here. And then the way that England come back into it, it's like that old, here we go again. The side that's going to struggle is being brought back to the level even though they've been ahead. Because it's just a parade of wickets through that last bit. I mean, Livingstone picks up a couple.
3 for 17, Livingstone, his best bowling in the format.
Yeah, and Curran just bowls at the stumps and swings it in and clean bowls a couple late. And Mark Wood, earlier than that, picks up a couple caught behind as well. And it's just that procession of wickets wickets where you go, oh, this is the teams who aren't able to handle the format are the ones who start to freak out when a couple of wickets fall, and then the rest of them just slip away.
Yeah, it's a good point. They lost 2 wickets with the score on 103 and 2 wickets with the score on 138 and 2 wickets in and over to Sam Curran, which both hit the stumps. I think that was over number 18 or something like that.
Yeah,
so they don't bat out their overs, but they get the ball in their hand, and even though it has fallen away, and Balbirnie spoke about this at his post-game press conference, they were disappointed at halfway mark. They did think they'd let the ascendancy slip to England. But then Josh Little, I think Ben Jones, when he was with you the other day in Torquay, foreshadowed something just like this. He said that he can't wait for Josh Little to run through England, and so he did. He gets Butler
also to be used earlier in the innings, because they've used Little in the middle of the innings at times, and there's been some questioning about why would you do that with a player of his ability? Why wouldn't you have him right up the top? And that's what they did, and it worked. I mean,
he goes bang bang, doesn't he?
Well, the shudder, the audible groan that went through the press box from the English press pack when Joss Butler nicks off so early in the match, they're like, oh, here we go. This is the start of something.
And then Alex Hales, who's not having a particularly good tournament so far either. He was miscuing the square leg when the score was on 14.
More like Alex Rains.
The third wicket to go in that power play was Stokes. Now, Fionn Hand, his first legal delivery in the tournament, the first was a wide, and I gather a couple of our colleagues were like, oh, bloody hell, this guy's no good. One of our Irish colleagues who was there tonight, and then, not that he was saying he was no good, but the conversation was swirling.
Right.
Next ball, the type of delivery you dream of to Ben Stokes.
Curled in to the left-hander and just whispered through the defence, which was paper thin at that point.
And at the halfway mark, though, they did
into the stumps.
They did sort of recover a little bit, didn't they?
Yes.
So they left themselves 95 runs from the back 10.
Yeah.
And look, at that juncture, David Malan, he's looking scratchy, but at least he's there. And we know Malan can take his strike rate from 100 to, say, 140 in the space of a few overs. He's got that club in the bag. And they've still got Moeen Ali to come. They've still got Liam Livingstone to come. And Harry Brooks, like 17 from 15 at that point. I mean, they are probably, despite all that's come before it, favourites at that point.
And then Ireland drop a couple of catches as well.
In the space of 2 balls.
Yeah, 2 consecutive catches, one from each, one from Brook and one from Milan. And that's where you think, again, here's the team that's less experienced at this level. They're going to choke. They're not going to be able to hold it out. But they get another opportunity to catch Brook. So England have given up 3 opportunities in the space of a few balls. Take that catch, difficult one in the deep, and then Mo starts hitting out, because what else is he going to do?
Yeah, I love that it was Delaney under it the third time as well. It was probably the hardest of the 3. So Dockrell, who's barely been bowling. I mean, Dockrell's really sort of changed as a cricketer in the last few years. He was out of the Ireland first team.
Did you know he started as a spinner? Crazy story. He started his career as a spinner, and now he bats.
But I think it's a little bit different to that. I think it's more like Dockrell had an entire career as a spinner, who came in at 9, maybe 8,
That's
but
what
9,
I mean.
Let's say. It's more that, like, it's not as though the Steve Smith.
He's in the
Scott
grand
Borthwicks
pantheon. Cameron White, Collins Obuya, all of those spinners who became bats.
But they did chuck in the ball, 1 for 5 from his one vital over, because suddenly they were behind DLS again.
Yeah.
So, and rain was coming, and that was the 11th over of the game. So
Range are coming. Marge, the range is here.
And then Milan has Moeen with him, and by the way, it was Brook that was out caught in the deep. But then so he's got Moeen walking in with Milan, 2 left-handers, and even there, the form that Moeen's been in over the last 6 months or so, you're probably thinking that they get there. And then Milan, that is the crucial bit, because that's the wicket that ensures they go behind Duckworth-Lewis. And that happens 5 or 6 balls before the rain comes.
Right, and that's where I'm surprised that at that point, do they not know? Do England not have someone running out saying, the radar's looking dicey, like we've got someone on the roof having a look at the clouds, there's rain coming, we need boundaries in the next couple of minutes. We need a Quinton de Kock style approach to things. Like, we've got to get ahead of this because they're suddenly in trouble. And
I think that's why he did that in the 15th over. He goes 4-6-2, I think it was, then the rain came down. But Milan getting that top edge off Bazza McCarthy, who went around in that loss. Who did they lose to a couple of weeks ago? They lost to somebody. Zimbabwe, possibly, I think it might have been. It was when Camphor didn't bowl his complement and McCarthy did. I think it was the record in a World Cup, something like that.
Okay.
And yet to take a wicket at the perfect time for Ireland to keep them ahead. And as we say,
Big Bad Barry.
Big bad. Bazza McKenzie's fair suck of the sauce bottle. Or Barry McCarthy.
I prefer a Big Bad Barry in the middle of the MCG. Finally, we've got another one. Probably much better than the previous one.
He won't kick a goal after the siren to sink Hawthorn this time around, though, will he? No, you won't, Barry. He'll give away a 150-metre penalty like he did for the Swans here.
He'll take a wicket to sink England and drop them behind the rate. And if they'd had a couple more balls, I'm sure that Moeen Ali would have been looking to hit one over the fence and they would have been okay, but they weren't.
I've got one more overarching point to make about Ireland's batting. look at the way they took on England's senior bowlers at the start of their spells. Mark Wood, 6 first ball. Albeit off a top edge, but the intent's there. And
wicket next ball, to be fair.
But, you know, Sterling hitting him for a 6 first ball.
Which was, well, yeah, all right, I'll come back to that in Hall of Fame, yeah.
Chris Wokes, 2 boundaries to bookend his first over. Adil Rashid, boundary off his first ball. Sam Curran, a 4 and a 6 in his first over. The point here being that they weren't sort of overawed by England and not trying to play them conservatively. These are big name bowlers, big T20 bowlers around the world. They're like, no, we are going to do what we need to do, especially inside the power play, which is why they got off to the fly. If they tried to play them with a degree of respect or if they were circumspect or any of that, they might have found themselves, you know, at a more conventional 6 over score, and they wouldn't have had the pressure. They wouldn't have been able to apply pressure from that point. But yeah, they always had that foundation because, and it won't always come off, but it's as though, and it'd be trite to say it was a free hit, but when you're playing the number 1 seed, you've got to try something different. You've got to shuffle the pack. You can't expect that the central case will be enough to get you over the line. And pulling that lever today's worked beautifully for them.
A wise comment from Tim Wigmore during the game today. He said, the weaker team has to take more risks. And they did, and it worked.
There it is.
Nothing ventured, nothing gained. So, it felt to me like, I mean, people will say that the Irish are a bit lucky and maybe Moeen and Livingston, if they'd had another couple of overs, would have bashed away, and maybe they would have, but equally maybe one of them would have been caught on the fence. I mean, I think the Irish were in the position they were in because they played so well, because they batted so well through the first half of their batting innings. Yeah, they let England back in, but then they bowled so well in the first half of their bowling innings, and we don't know whether they would have let England back in. It looked like they may have been just about to let England back in, but they played so well up top that they were ahead when the calculation was made, and they deserve to win.
Stepping back from the game itself and England sort of taken as a whole, they looked really good against Australia in the bilateral series in the lead up to this. They were a bit scratchy against Afghanistan. They bowled well.
Oh, chasing 112 and looked awful.
Yeah, but they bowled well. So, one of the 2 bits has gone right.
Sure.
It wasn't a complete misadventure over in Perth. Now they're in a tough spot. You've been doing the numbers, Jeff, and in all probability, if they lose to Australia here at the G in a couple of nights' time, they'll be out of the competition. And so it is for Australia as well, of course. I mean, there is a mathematical route to the semis for Australia if they lose. But in all probability, loser goes out. England have found themselves in this spot under a new captain as well, Joss Buttler. They didn't have a particularly good home summer in white ball cricket. They broke even. I think they won half their games, but were scrappy across the 50 over and 20 over stuff. I'm not going to sort of just carte blanche say that Owen Morgan, it would have been any different under him, not for a moment, but sometimes teams can take a while to gel under a new captain. And it probably wasn't great timing that Buttler took over with just a few months before a World Cup in hindsight.
I mean, potentially, but then I was listening to an interview with Mark Hussey, and he was talking up the way that Buttler was running this team. I suppose he would because he's working for them,
getting paid.
But he made he made a particular mention of how Buttler was running this team. So maybe within the 4 walls, as they say, within the 5 walls, if you're in a pentagon-shaped building.
But do you believe that? I mean, I'm sorry, I love Josh. You love Josh. We love Josh, right? But do you really believe he's a good captain? I mean,
I don't think he's an inspiring captain.
Yeah, it's kind of my. I mean, this is 100 metres away analysis, right? Not in the middle analysis. I just sort of don't feel it with him. It's on vibes basis.
If there's a group of people saying, what should we get to eat? I don't think Joss is the one being like, kebabs. I want a kebab. Let's go and get one. I think he's like, well, whatever you guys think, that's fine. Yeah.
Whereas Morgan's 20 metres up the road already ordering the kebabs.
He's ordered.
He's ordered it on his phone. You're going to get to the kebab shop and they're ready for you. When he already remembers your preferences from last time.
Right. Exactly. He knows who doesn't like garlic sauce. He knows who's
he knows who gets a dim sim cut inside of it.
Yeah. A butterfly dim sim on the grill.
Everyone. Yeah. I just don't feel it with Joss, and that's sad because again, I love Joss, one of my favourite players in the world. I've been talking him up seemingly since he was in the fucking womb. But I just don't feel it, and I'm not sure who could replace him anyway. It's a moot point. They're not going to replace him.
No.
But tough gig for Matt Mott taking over when he did. Joss too. For all of that, I expect they'll walk out here in 2 days' time and spifflicate Australia, because why won't they?
They could.
And then it'll be Australia it'll be like it was last year when Australia were pounded by 10 wickets against England and didn't lose a game thereafter. This might be the wake-up call that England need.
Oh, it's the wake-up call they needed. Or it might be the thing that throws them off. I don't know. So, look, assuming New Zealand do what they should do and beat the teams they should beat, so they got half a result. They got 1 point for the washout with Afghanistan
tonight. Should have mentioned that. So they didn't get a ball bowled and they called the play-off. I think they called it off 50 minutes before the cut-off. Such was the...
It was so wet.
Such was the downpour,
So they've got to play Ireland, Sri Lanka, and England after this. That'll be their 5 games done. Unless they lose to the teams they shouldn't lose to, New Zealand should finish top at this point. England, which means as long as that happens, England and Australia becomes a knockout game. If England lose to Australia,
it's a
they're
knockout.
out. If England lose to Australia, they're out.
Of the game.
Yeah, there's no way around it. And if Australia lose to England, the only way they could qualify after that is if New Zealand beat England and then Australia can vie with England for net run rate. Right. So that'd be the only way they could make it. So unless New Zealand bomb out completely and Australia and England could take the top 2 spots, then there's only one spot left, and Friday's game will decide it. So, I mean, it's massive. It's even bigger than it was at this point.
Yeah, and they'll probably have 75,000 people here at the G, maybe more.
Maybe more?
With the States.
Come on down.
Yeah, well, you should. If you can get a ticket. On the basis of what you experienced here a couple of nights ago, a packed G for effectively an elimination World Cup game, that could be very special. Jeff, time for
Hall of Fame?
CBUS Super, Hall of Fame. CBUS Super making hard work pay off. I wanted to just change it up a wee bit tonight. We've been talking a lot about the history of CBUS, reminding newer listeners. I know our older listeners know the story of CBUS, but our newer listeners of where they fit in. 1984, 4 members by members, 74 billion, I better get this right, funds under management, 8.8% return average over the last 38 years. All those great numbers. But one really important point on the way through, you're only charged admin and investment fees needed to manage your account. That run to benefit members.
Shareholders.
Which means fees and costs are kept as low as possible, and any profits go to members, not shareholders.
That's how we like it.
That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it?
That's what we're all about, profits to members.
And get your super sorted out if you haven't. cbussuper.com.au. Get on the website. Past performance is no reliable indicator
of future performance.
Boom.
Although we know that line because we performed it in the past. I would throw in, so there was a long, intense conversation in the press box about how Ireland had buggered up their selections and they should have picked Simi Singh because he would have turned the ball away from the 2 left-handers. That was when Milan was batting with Stokes. About 2 minutes later, Fionn Hand curls one through Ben Stokes and knocks him over, and that conversation stopped.
How about the fact that Fionn Hand, and Wiggy told me this, it'll be in a Telegraph piece tomorrow. I guess it's up now, UK time, in the paper tomorrow. He is the only non-full-time professional Irish cricketer in the squad, and he still runs a coffee van at Clontarf Cricket Club. Of course, it's at Clontarf. He still has a coffee van that he drives to the games and that kind of thing. So it's a nice little sidebar story that'll be written up in the paper tomorrow, telling his yarn.
And you go again. My other one was the Paul Sterling one I foreshadowed earlier. Mark Wood who bowled really well today. Lots of pace. Really gave it everything. Loved it. Sterling gets a bit of width, slashes one away to deep third. There's a pretty good flick back in. I can't remember who was...
Sam Curran.
Sam Curran, who grabs it, throws it back in. They think he's saved 5 runs. They do the forensic and find that he's just touched the rope, right? So that gets called a 6. So he's almost been caught at deep third. What does he do in the next ball? Slashes it off the top edge to deep third and gets caught. Love you, Paul Sterling. Don't change.
Sam Curran should work on his footwork skills. What we saw underneath where we are right now.
Oh, yeah.
The New Zealand side.
Ashin Bandara, the Sri Lankan sub last night as well, with the fancy footwork over the rope to not step on it. It was incredible.
Right, yeah. And we saw the New Zealand side going through their paces, not playing cricket because there was no cricket to be played. They were playing that foot volleyball game, but it looked quite competitive, more competitive than it usually is. My main contribution for Hall of Fame, though, is that if anyone knows a little bit about the origin of Jerusalem being sung at cricket games, it's probably me. I did write 5,000 words about it a number of years ago for the Night Watchman Journal. Where it started, how it happened. It actually started because of WWF wrestling.
Right.
Weirdly. Anyway.
I think it started because of William Blake, but, let's...
At the cricket. The cricket. The Barmy Army sing it after the second ball of the day's play.
Okay.
But today, they sung it after the second ball, not only of the first innings, but the second innings as well. And they were still singing it as Josh Butler nicked off. It's after the first ball. I got that wrong. After the first ball, during the second ball.
Right.
And the second ball was the one in which he nicked off to Josh Little and sent England on this collision course with a heavy defeat. I say heavy defeat, an important defeat against Ireland. My narrative here is, if you're listening, Barmy Army, just sing it once. Maybe it was singing it the second time at the beginning of the chase that gave bad juju.
So had they not started singing it at Brisbane in the Ashes when Rory Burns got done first ball?
They started immediately after, as Burns was walking off. They, as is their custom, started singing it.
That's when you know you're having a bad day.
It started here in 1998-99 when England beat Australia in the Test match. That was the first Test when they were singing Jerusalem here at the cricket.
Right.
So it's been ever since.
It's right up there on my list of songs that are used for patriotic purposes by people who do not understand the song and do not realise that they're completely unpatriotic. Jerusalem, Born in the USA for America, and Kaysan for Australia. They're the big three. If you've got others, let me know.
Yeah, and Jerusalem, every major political party in the UK has used it as their conference song at one point or another, which again speaks to how it has been used and misused over the years. Enough about hymns and poems for one day. This has been the Final Word Daily, day 11. Thanks to CBUS Super, making your hard work pay off. cbussuper.com.au. Jump on there. Get your super sorted out. Do what Jeff has never really got around to doing. Yeah. Get your super sorted out. Do it now. We'll be back tomorrow. Where are we tomorrow? There's games in Sydney, but we can't. We're not going up for the day.
No.
We might try and do it.
Somewhere else?
In the street that has been called the best street in the world recently in some publications, Smith Street, Collingwood, where I'm staying.
Wow.
We'll do it there.
Okay.
Okay, good night. Well done, Ireland.
Okay. See you later.